This is supported bridge. You can either use a block or a bolster. You could use even a blanket, a foam roller, a Coregeous ball, kind of figure out what you have and what can work. You just want something that's going to gently support your pelvis. The block is nice. It can be a little bit lower. The bolster is much bigger and broader, but because it's also taller, it's sometimes harder to get onto. So I'll show both ways. We'll show first with the block and then with the bolster, and then we'll talk through it. So you lay on your back with your knees bent. Move this out of the way. From here, you lift up. You slide the block underneath your sacrum, underneath your pelvis. It is not under the low back. It's well below the level of the navel. And you just kind of wiggle and adjust. Being at a low height and with the block wide is usually most comfortable, but you can also turn the block 90 degrees so that it's vertical. So I have it this way versus wide, right? Either way is fine, just as long as it feels comfortable for your sacrum and your SI joints. So that's with the block. I'm gonna demo and show with the bolster. I really like it with the bolster. It again is a little bit harder to get into, just in that you have to lift your hips higher. So you'll lift, slide the bolster underneath, and once again, the bolster is primarily under the sacrum, but because the bolster is longer, it might also support your low back, and that might be nice and comfortable. The lower the bolster is, the more you're going to have a tendency to anterior tilt. The higher the bolster, the more you're going to have a tendency to posteriorly tilt. Either way, the bolster is still under the sacrum. Just make sure that it feels comfortable for the entirety of your body. If you're on the block or something else, be there and try to let the front of your hips relax. Arms can come to your side, be on your abdomen, or even be on the front of your hips. For many of us, we have a really hard time turning off our quads and our hip flexor muscles. So see if you can sense a softening, broadening, or even widening of this area between the front of your pelvis. You can feel these bony points, your ASIS, and your femur, your thigh bone. Can you sense that that space between the two can get bigger? And that's really imagery. It might mean, again, a little posterior tilt or a tucking of your pelvis. It might just be imagery in your mind that these tissues can become softer, giving you more space. Take your time to be there, and then again, either hands on your low abdomen, staying at your pelvis or out to the side. Try to breathe into your hips. Letting the breath travel all the way into your pelvic floor and letting that breath into the pelvic floor touch your hips. A widening as you inhale, a narrowing and lifting as you exhale. Breathing in and out of your hips. Feeling that breath traveling down to both sides of the pelvic floor and hips, noticing if one side feels more restricted or tighter. Be here for a few more rounds of breath, using your breath as a tool, letting your hips soften, letting go of the weight of your legs and your pelvis. After your next exhale, if it feels okay, hug one knee into your chest And as you maneuver and start to move, you may need to adjust the prop underneath you. By all means, do that. One knee is hugging into the chest, the other foot is to the floor, and just breathe here. Same thing, breathing into both hips, breathing into the pelvic floor. It just will feel a little different now because you're in more of this split-like motion or position. So each hip is doing something different. You can also let that breath awareness travel up to the abdomen. Can you breathe towards your thigh and towards the ground beneath you, maybe the bolster beneath you? So pelvic floor awareness, abdominal awareness, a widening and expansion as you inhale, a narrowing, a recoiling as you exhale. Still soft in the hips. When you feel ready, you can either bring both legs up or bring that hugged knee in down and switch sides. Second side. If you ever get pinching in your hip or a discomfort in the front of the hip on that side that's hugged in, let the knee go wider towards your armpit or out to the side. If there's discomfort in the knee, you can hug behind the thigh instead of on top of the shin. So always modifying, the foot is floppy. Breathing pelvic floor and abdomen. Into both hips, into the thigh, into the low back. One more breath here. And then letting both legs, again, either come down or go up. If both legs feel comfortable going up, do a little bit of motion, a little bit of kind of walking or stepping action with the legs. You can also add more of a true walking on the ceiling or cycling. Just move the legs here, getting a little bit of this inversion, letting the legs be truly higher than the heart, not just the pelvis. All of this has been an inversion, which is really calming for the whole system, for the whole inner workings of your body, giving all of it a little bit of rest. You can even rock a little bit from side to side. You can let legs go wide or come into a diamond shape. And all pretty easy movement, right? Again, the pelvis is being held and supported. If any of this is not comfortable, don't force through it. This is meant to be restful and restorative. Gently let the feet come back down. And once again, rest here. You can either continue to rest with your feet directly under your knees, or you could gently walk your feet out a little bit longer, maybe even a little bit longer. Just ensuring that wherever you let yourself rest, you don't feel things pulling. So when I go out further, I'm being pulled forward. That's too much. I'm going to come in, and for me, it feels best for my feet to just be a little bit out beyond my knees. My low back still feels relaxed. My hips still feel relaxed. So find what that position is for you. Let your arms rest and be here in this more released, supported bridge for as long as you'd like. Easy breathing. You might still be envisioning breathing into the pelvic floor, the hips, the abdomen, and the low back, or you might just be letting the breath find its natural rhythm. Finding softness, feeling support, letting yourself rest. Again, stay here for as long as you'd like. Whenever you're ready to come out, if your feet are out, they'll walk in. Take some time to move through your pelvis. Engage the legs so that the spine has some support, and then slide the prop out to the side. Let yourself come back down gently. Take a moment to be on your back in stillness. Another breath or two. You might even rest here for longer. Take all the time you need. And that's supported bridge.